Exciting news, everyone. My new book, I Wish I'd Quit Sooner, is officially out now. You can grab it on all major book retailers and online distributors, and the audiobook is also available on all the popular listening apps. Visit drlaura.live or check the link in the show notes to get your copy today. I'm really inspired by this episode. It touched me deeply, and I'm so excited to read their full book, the Peace Guidebook. So let me introduce these two authors, amazing women in the world. Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino is a leading voice in personal development, and she inspired a global movement towards authenticity, compassion, and change, and is the co-founder of this Best Ever You network. So she does amazing things and has a platform that reaches millions of people. And she's authored several books, and the Peace Guidebook is her latest book. She has a background including leadership studies at Harvard Business School, and she brings both professional depth and lived experience. You're just going to love meeting Elizabeth. And then her co-author, Dr. Katie Eastman, is an internationally acclaimed grief and change expert, as well as a licensed therapist and a master grief coach. And when she's working with people through grief, it's all about how you move past the grief and find inner peace again. And she is a master when it comes to the wisdom that we need to get through the challenging times in our lives. So both of these women are all about transforming people's lives from pain and suffering and fear to hope and motivation and inspiration, and making the world a better place, one human at a time. So without further ado, let's get started on this episode. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed talking to them. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Where Work Meets Life. I'm Dr. Laura, and I'm here today to talk with two brilliant women and authors and professionals who have written a book that we're going to explore, the Peace Guidebook. And today's episode is about the principles of finding inner peace in a challenging world. And we do have a challenging world we're dealing with today. And this book, the Peace Guidebook, which I'm holding up for those of you on YouTube, really is a path forward for people to find peace amidst the uncertainty, amidst the challenges, amidst all the tricky aspects of what we're going through as humans. So I'm going to introduce Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino and Dr. Katie Eastman. I'm going to ask you each to tell me a bit more about why you embarked on this journey and published this guidebook all around peace. So we'll start with you, Dr. Katie.
Well, it was a wonderful conversation with Elizabeth where we were talking about what does the world need? And we both really pretty quickly said peace. What about peace? And what can we do with peace? So we started asking questions and asking people, what do you think about peace? And we asked kids as well. And I interviewed a bunch of kids, and they all said, and I asked them, well, what's peace to you? And they said, being a good friend, being kind, and having each other's back. But the adults said, absence of war, absence of violence. So from all that was born this concept that we did research about, which is peace begins with all of us, and it begins within us, and then it ripples out. And that's how it began, that conversation.
Wow. Peace begins within us. And I believe that too. And our inner world and our inner peace reflects our outer world. So let's hear from you, Elizabeth. How did you embark on this journey?
Well, we have written a book before, this one called Percolate, Let Your Best Self Filter Through, which is a Hay House book that was released in 2014. So we're pretty used to working together. We're on opposite ends of the country, though. Katie's in the state of Washington and I'm in the state of Maine. And, we did think it was time to work together again. And I think the question was, what are we going to do? And I think our other book left off with peace. And so it's sort of a natural pickup, but also what Katie was saying, the world needs us right now so badly. And we wrote this book. We always say to give people a hug if they need one. The book will give you a giant hug, or you can hug it. We've literally done book signings where people are holding the book and hugging it and swaying and stuff like that. And, and we're also parents of, between the two of us, we have 5 children. I have 4 boys and Katie has a daughter. And I think they factored in as well, thinking, what do they need? What does this next generation coming up and the one before that coming up need? And I think peace. We've all been through a pandemic. We're going through whatever we're going through now, whatever you want to call that. And I think we need just a lot of love in the world. It's time.
I want to thank you all for you both for embarking on this journey and writing this book. And yeah, it really comes from a place of lived experience and your careers. So I'd love just to hear a little bit more about each of your career paths and what you do in this world for your career beyond writing books. So let's hear from you, Katie.
Well, I'm a therapist and a master grief coach. And so peace is something I work with every single day because people come to me in a state of anxiety, a state of depression, just struggles, challenges. And right now, more than ever, I've even since the pandemic, this is worse than that, and unsettled. And so finding peace is about really reclaiming their lives in a different way. And so as a therapist, as a grief coach, that's what I work with people, is constantly asking yourself, what do you need? What do you need to do to get there? And how can you reclaim your peace?
Beautiful. Yeah, and going through grief, that's the time when all we're seeking is peace from the pain and the emotions and the looping thoughts of the loss. And yeah, I agree with you totally that we're in a trickier time than even the pandemic was.
We really are, because the pandemic, at least we had something concrete in common, and now we're so divided. And so people feel more alone than ever, and they need connection. And like Elizabeth said, our book is like a big hug because it brings everybody together.
It really is a big hug. And I'm so impressed too with all the exercises in it and the activities and the ways to reflect that are laced throughout it. So beautiful. Uh, Elizabeth, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your career?
So I kind of a dual career in the financial services industry and the self-help industry. I'm the CEO of Compliance 4 and the CEO of Best Ever You. CEO for Best Ever You with a little hyphen in there, or asterisk, or what do you want to call it? Because Katie's been with it since the get-go too. So Katie's pretty much a contributing co-founder of Best Ever You. It wouldn't be here without her, and neither would the podcast, The Best Ever You Show. So huge nod to Katie there for stepping in and lending her expertise to Best Ever You all of these years, because it's been a marvelous journey with Best Ever You, and the show has, I think the show has 8 or 9 million downloads now. So that's my background there, is besteveryou.com and compliance4.com. And then aside from that, my husband and I have been married for just about 30 years, and we have 4 boys who are adults. I don't know whether to say boys, sons, adult sons. we have 4 peaceful men in the universe, and their girlfriends and soon to be wives and so forth. So a big family. We live here in Maine, and I feel like I exist on the planet and have existed on this planet to help people be their best. Just in whatever capacity that is. It varies from person to person, but I always say that when my life touches yours, I hope it's for the best for both of us. Always. Any human being I encounter, my goal is to leave them better off than when I found them.
I love it. And that's my goal as well. And to raise 4 men into caring, empathetic humans is not an easy task, and just beautifully done.
Tricky.
I like tricky because it doesn't put a lot of pressure. It's tricky, right? But tricky things can be dealt with. Gives a little bit of a lighter flavor to heavy issues and topics. So I want to ask you a little bit more about the book. How has it, who's it for? How has it impacted people so far? And yeah, tell us your hopes and dreams for the Peace Guidebook.
I think we've got a lot of hopes and dreams. I hope it percolates throughout the world and everybody gets a copy, and not from any kind of sales standpoint, more from the information that's in their standpoint. We're doing a giant book signing in New York City on Fifth Avenue at the Barnes and Noble there on July 15th. It's a ticketed event. It's a $20 ticket to get a book and come shake our hand and give us a hug that we're going to need, because we're going to be scared to be doing that. So I think we reached a moment there where feel a little bit above ourselves, but that's all right. We're going to do it anyway. And, that's our hope. We're trying to gather 1 million or more people to percolate peace, and go to percolatepeace.com and log in that moment of peace, or a peace promise, or a prayer, or a wish, or a random act of kindness, anything like that. But I think the overall hope is, if you need peace, we hope we find you. And we hope the book finds you, and that you share it with somebody else who might need it, and just, get it percolating. That's the hope for the world. Cause I think, I don't know if people, Katie, chime in, because I don't know if people practice peace so well.
Well, I think the biggest thing and because as a therapist and coach, I've used it a lot, and I've had some challenging experiences with people who have very different values than me, and I'm not allowed to show that or say that, but I have to work with them. And so it has been really helpful to use the tools from the Peace Guidebook about differences and finding common ground and finding compromise and working with helping people identify their values. And really, we're not all that far apart sometimes. We just don't know what questions to ask each other to get to that middle place. So I feel like the Peace Guidebook has a lot of really practical advice about how to do that.
And for all ages too. So when we're, when we're at book signings, we're seeing all age groups come up and get a copy of the book. I've seen kids pick up the copy of the book and say, we need this for our family. And just all sorts of comments. Somebody wrote us remember the letter we got this past weekend, Katie, was a pretty long letter of meeting us and saying thank you. And the book was already changing his life, and he was going to take the course, and all sorts of things. So that's really what we're after. It doesn't have to be some mass audience or anything like that. Really, it's one person at a time, one peaceful encounter at a time, and ripple it. That's Katie. Okay, that's Katie's word. Ripple.
Beautiful. And percolate is a word that you use. So percolating peace, we'll put that in the show notes, how to go to your site, how to enter it, how to put forward signs of peace or affirmations or whatever else. So how are people using that so far?
Everything from it's changed my life, I'm working the exercises every day, to I bought somebody coffee today, or I picked something up off someone's lawn. I mean, it can be anything that they feel they're doing to help someone else. And it's been really wonderful. I mean, there's been conversations with family members they haven't spoken to before. It's just really, it's rippling out in a big way.
Another author joined us too. Yeah, it is right here. We try and help people go from their head to their heart all day long, because we're stuck. We're thinking, and where we really need to be is right here. And so another author joined us, Matthew Casalato, who was Harness Your Promise Power. That's his book. And he said, can we do something along the line of promises? And Katie and I were like, well, how about peace promises? And so May the 4th is his promise day. We chimed in this past year and added him to our website. So now we have people logging in promises of peace, or promises they're making to themselves or their family or others around them, which is amazing. I just saw one the other day. I promised to be grateful every day. Katie wrote I can't remember what you wrote, Katie, exactly, but you wrote like 5 promises. I don't know if you put it up on the website yet, but that was beautiful. And sorry, they're just little reminders to be, peaceful.
And great use of all the P's, by the way. I love alliteration, and I've used a lot in my own speaking in my own recent book. But presence, potential, patience, practice, passion. Each chapter has such great content. And then there's all these peace points. And I like the peace points because they're very targeted and specific, actionable, tangible ways to move forward. So this book is not sort of really ambiguous and a big picture. It gets into the details of how, right? So I just want to commend you on that, because a lot of self-help books sometimes don't go into this structured way of working through it.
Right. And that was a very important factor for us. We didn't want to just, well, we have a wonderful saying called a no fluff zone. We are a no fluff zone because we want really everything to be practical and applicable. And we want people to read this book and change things. We don't want them to just, it's not fluff. It's really based on a lot of research and work and people's lives.
And also, peace is such an interestingly huge topic. I don't know if people really know what peace means. It's hard to get a definition around it. And so when we started writing this book, it felt a little daunting. We both had a few moments where we're up at 4 a.m. like, what did we just say yes to? We're going to write a book about peace. And you feel in that moment, even as the authors, that the topic is too big for you. Like, it shouldn't be something somebody in their, house with their jammies on with their hair on their head should be doing. It feels like it should be left up to some government, official or a dignitary in a far off land. And so I think that's what we really brought home, is this concept that peace is up to us each individually to practice right here, right now, and ripple it on outward and teach the next person to practice peace and the next person and so forth. And I think that is more practical and more useful and so forth to kind of get your arms around it. Because we had when we first put the book out, you're out in the wild with a book and people can say whatever they want. And somebody said, how dare these two women take on this topic of peace, this huge topic? And then they wrote ... and yet they did it. Right? I had the same thing when I started reading. I'm like, oh no, exactly what we, tried to not do. And so it was perfect. Then it turned out to be exactly what we tried to do. It's like, okay, everybody's trying to get their arms around what this means. And then somebody else called it, I love this one, and Katie does too, the antidote to chaos.
Yes, and the world is chaotic right now, and a lot of people are chaotic inside. So we have the inside chaos, the mind, the ego, the fear. A lot of it's fear, right? And then the outside chaos, which is all the noise and the polarization and the wars, and the ego, which is ego and fear externally. And if we can first find a point of peace internally, even sometimes it can really make a big difference in the world, right? The more people find that, it's so powerful. So what was one of your aha moments? Think about that, some way that you grew through doing this project, some way that you evolved. So let's hear first from Katie this time.
One aha moment, which was a ha-ha moment too, it was very funny because there's a lot of humor in this book also, was we were trying to come up with a metaphor. Like, you do a lot of work, Laura, on workplace conflict. And so we were trying to come up with a metaphor using animals. And we came up with dolphins, sharks, and whales. And I have used that so many times, and with clients, with people who are struggling in the workplace, because Elizabeth came up with this statement one day and she said, sometimes it feels like we're dolphins doing water ballet in a shark tank. And I remember that moment going, wow, that is so full of information. Because when you think about it, a dolphin is smart, but playful and balanced. They're connected. They love community. A shark is purposeful, circles, makes sure she knows what they're doing when. Sorry, that was a little slip there. And then a whale is powerful. and big, and everyone feels afraid of it. So when you think about a workplace conflict, are you the whale? Are you the dolphin? Or are you the shark in this situation? Because we're all a little bit of all of them. And I found that incredibly helpful. And I've used it over and over and over, because sometimes when we step away from our humanness and we think of ourselves like an animal in a metaphorical way, it's easier.
Yes, I love that. I do love that concept, the dolphin in a shark tank, and yeah, it can feel like that, but dolphins are nimble and resilient, and there are a lot of sharks around, but sharks, like you said, they aren't always as bad as they seem. They can be swam around and navigated, right?
Right. And when you think about a team of people, we need sharks, we need whales, and we need dolphins. We need them all. But we need them to be connected and working together and listening to each other. So that's the key.
And we need masculine and feminine energy. And I noticed the slip he versus she, but in the end, but in the end, right, we all have masculine and feminine energy, regardless of our gender identification. And I think the world has too much masculine energy, that control, compete, I win, you lose, power, ego. And it just is really stifling the feminine energy of flow and trust and care and nurture. And so I think you're really onto something with that analogy. It's just beautiful. Now, what about you, Elizabeth? Aha moment or evolution in yourself from this project?
I was really moved by the contributors. I think more than anything, also the contributors sort of blew me away with this. When we put the book out into the world, all of these people started saying yes or wanted to be in the book. And I think that was so neat to connect with people Katie knew, people I knew, people we didn't know, and it just, I don't know, it just, it's hard to put words to this feeling, but it just felt like people showed up magically. That was kind of my aha thing, is some books, when you write them, they're a challenge to write, and getting every word out on paper is really tricky and difficult, and it's a process, and it's a process in editing and so forth. And this being my fourth self-help book and Katie's third, this one flowed in a really interesting way, and it was so much fun to just have your best friend by you writing the book and getting up at 4 a.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever time it was with the downloads, and then have all these different people showed up. The book is just delightful. It's just a warm hug to the universe. And in chapter 4, I think what changed my life of all the contributors the most, no offense to all 20 of them or anything, but there's two humans in chapter 4. We love you all. But two humans in chapter 4 met because of the Peace Guidebook, Chad and Jen, and they just bought a house together. So we have a love connection. And I think that just, I think that's the aha moment is, for everybody listening, whatever you're doing, it's a sign that if something's hard, do it. If it's challenging, do it. If it feels right, and it's not just do it. It's, work at it and just pay attention, I guess. Slow yourself down a little bit more. Pay attention to what's going on and the signs and the clues and kind of where you're supposed to go. Just follow your intuition a little bit if you can. And so forth. They didn't articulate that perfectly, but this book is filled with those magical serendipitous moments where somebody showed up, said yes, and they're in the book, and they're so proud to be in the book, and that makes the book just that much better. That was long-winded and a little bit choppy, but I don't know. But that was an aha moment for me. It's just like, oh my gosh, right here to my heart, all these people and Katie and everybody. And I'm so proud of this book. It's under my pillow at night. I've got like one in my purse, one under my pillow, one in the car. I must have 10 copies of this thing where I can see it I've got it in my bathroom by my mirror, just constant reminders everywhere. of some of the copies I've purchased, placed in strategic locations. And then I carry about maybe 50 of them in my back of my car to give out to people.
They're everywhere. Our cat jumped in the box today, and she went to sleep on top of all the Peace books.
That's so cute. And I must say, I have so many books being a podcaster for 6 years, and that there's always most of my guests have books. I mean, let's face it. And I don't get through many of the books cover to cover. I just don't have capacity. And yours is the same. I haven't got through cover to cover, but this conversation makes me want to get through it cover to cover. All of it, because I think it's something that all of us need to be digesting and working through, including me.
Somebody brought a copy. They bought it right when the book came out. So they got their pre-order and it came to them. And that book was so beat up. It was dog-eared. It had sticky notes. It had everything. And they opened it up and they're like, here, can you sign this? I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're like, I know, I'm going to buy another one. It's really fun. But it was so written in and highlighted and everything. It made me think, okay, that's pretty cool.
And one of the things, if you don't mind, Laura, I want to read this. This is one of the things we're both so proud of, is that the foreword is written by Desmond Tutu's daughter. And a family who went through being advocates against apartheid, who, they suffered so much through that whole process as a family. And this is what she wrote and in our foreword. And our foreword is so beautiful because she actually says in this book how much she feels like we're carrying on his work. And she talks about reading this book. I'm reminded of the African wisdom of Ubuntu. I am because we are. Peace is not something we achieve alone. It's something we become together. And that really is the essence of the book. We are all in this together. And if we want peace, we have to start with us. And are you a shark, a dolphin, or who are you? And who do you want to be?
I want to be a stingray. I want to go deeper and deeper into this whole, realm of us all being connected. And there is magic there. There's magic. There's a great consciousness. And I think it's beautiful.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. And I want to say, so the state of the world and the state of workplaces, being a workplace psychologist, I'm always in the weeds of culture. I say weeds because a lot of cultures are like weeds wrecking a garden. There's toxicity that spreads and egos and fear. And there's a lot of that out there too. And one of my websites, so we run a therapy practice on the side of our Canada Career Counseling, and it's called Synthesis Psychology. And it's my team of therapists. Anyway, it gets hacked and there's a hacker after it. And so my operations manager was stressing out about this and trying to solve it. And we had good tech support and it's all like safe now, but it would be so easy to become cynical about who would hack a therapy practice website, right? Who would do that? There's these types of people in the world that would target that type of business. So what would your response be to me and to my operations manager in going through that sort of scenario?
So you can't control others, right? You can only control you. Really, truly. I've been hacked too. Who would hack best ever you? Who would, it's just the world we're in. People are whatever they're doing. And it might not even be people. It might be just bots and computers and whatever. So for you, for us and so forth, pause, breathe, choose. Implement the pause. Take some deep breaths. Katie can go into it more because it's frustrating. Before you do anything, pause, breathe, and then choose how you're going to react and respond to it with peace. So maybe say a prayer, I'm sorry that you're so desperate that you needed to hack my website. Bless you. I hope you're all right. Instead of, I'm so mad. Who would do that? Oh my God. Do.
You're absolutely right, because obviously that soul is really suffering. That the humans on the other end of the AI or the actual humans, they're suffering so deeply, obviously.
When we were down in South Carolina this past winter, all of the cars got broken into if they were open and unlocked, and somebody's bikes got stolen. our neighbors' bikes got stolen. Both their new bikes got taken. And we all got together and, people were frustrated. People were this, people were that. But in general, a couple people had the Peace Guidebook and a couple people said they had early copies of the Peace Guidebook and it was at the tail end. They're like, what would you do? And I'm like, well, you can do a lot of things. You can stew and brew and stomp your feet and call this, call that, and do whatever. Or, you can be, if this happened and move on and, call the authorities, of course, try and get your bikes back if you can. They're long gone. But in general, release the energy. I'm sorry to these people that, they needed those items so that badly to do something like that. And, peace be with you.
And one of the things that's important, we also say, is that we all lose it at times. And we had a great, very funny conversation about, do we say lose our, or do we say lose it? Because we were trying to, be very emphatic. And reality is we all do. We all have, and that's not bad because we have to let our human emotions respond. But the reason we wrote the book is because it's not that you don't do that because we're human, but it's how you come back from it. So you can be angry because, of course, there's so many reasons for people to be angry right now, given their lifestyle and what's happening to them. But you can be angry and then you come back to peace.
One person got so angry, they hit a car and broke their hand.
Right. And that's self-destructive. What we're advocating is that people be honest with their emotions and then come back to peace. Not in a destructive way, but also some people being peaceful is being out there protesting. Sometimes being peaceful is sharing a conversation with someone that might get heated, but still stay connected. So peace is not always calm. That's important. We really emphasized that.
Like there was no calm moments when that initially happened. Everybody was so, my new bikes are gone. Our cars are all broken into. Everybody's very frustrated. But once you get all that out, it's like, okay, what's the response? I totally agree with you, Katie. It's so important to just that pause, breathe, choose somewhere in all of that. It's a really good practice to not stew and brew for very long on things, especially on things that you have no control of, because all really that does, like anger, any time you spend in anger, you detract from peace, any moment. So, and you're not entitled to time. You only get so many moments. So do you want to spend them all angry or do you want to spend more from peaceful? It's a definite choice. It's a definite practice. It's a definite methodology. I'm going to say that wrong to implement when you have conflict of any kind. It's how are you going to react and respond to that? And how long are you going to stay there?
Exactly. And I find journaling it, pen to paper, really helps me release it. And time in nature also helps me to get a bigger perspective on it. And I want to say that I think one of the things that stood out in your book is you talk about how people judge and assume things about others and how that runs so rampant. And how do we hold ourselves more accountable to doing less of that? Do you have any other nuggets to share?
In the book, we talked about my dad. My dad was a stroke survivor from 2004 to 2018. And you couldn't tell by looking at him that anything had happened to him. And he would go into the store. My brother and I would, leave him in the movie section because he loved movies. And he would look at all the movies and see what he could see. But he was basically blind. He had field cuts here and here, and he was basically blind. So somebody had to guide him a little bit. And somebody bumped into him. Or, I'm sorry, he bumped into somebody else. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My dad was 6'6", and this person was maybe about 5'10". So he bumped into somebody pretty good. And the guy got so blistering mad and heated. He was like, I'm going to kill you, old man, and all this stuff. And how dare you? It was choice at my dad. My brother and I came rushing over and we're like, we're so sorry. He's a stroke survivor. He can't see you, blah, 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 blah. And the guy was mortified at himself. He was absolutely like, oh my God, I just picked on somebody handicapped. kind of thing. And it was all a teaching moment right there. And we wrote about it in the book. And my dad then carried cards that he would hand out to people if he bumped into people, saying, "I'm sorry I bumped into you. I'm a stroke survivor. I can't see, blah, 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 blah." And, but that's the level that Katie and I, and Katie, chime in, please interrupt me, that we think that we need to go through the world with, of tender, loving care with other humans.
We always say, show up with love. In whatever you do, show up with love. But I just used that same idea with someone who has a disease and has a walker and has run over people with people's feet. So we put a big sign on it that says, I, proceed with caution. I can't see your feet. And it's got bright red and orange tape all over it from his grandchildren put all over it to make him seen. And it's really important that people recognize that there's always something you can do to make something better. And it's the helplessness. We talk about in the book, we talk about right now, people feel morally fatigued because they feel helpless, that their morals and values are not being seen or heard or understood, and they don't know what to do about it. And that's where we come in and say, it starts with you. Your morality, your values, your world of peace begins how you show up with love every day, every moment. And that you are not helpless is a big part of the book.
Yeah, and we're not going to all walk around. I'm going to start doing this, so I swear. We're not going to walk around with Post-its on our forehead that say, "Pardon me, I'm exhausted. I was up all night with my 4 kids," or have a T-shirt on that says, "Pardon me, I'm grieving." But, think of people that way, though, when you're encountering them, because most often somebody has something going on in the background, even in that moment, that is happening, and everything else is just layered on top. And it's true. I mean, my mom, was a caregiver for my dad forever. And, she didn't have a T-shirt that said, "Be nice to me. I've been up all night. My husband's a stroke survivor. I've been caregiving for years. I'm pretty tired. We don't have a lot of money right now. Our business is down. Help us." But that's the sign we need. And if you stop, pause with other humans, when people say, when you say, "How are you today?" and people go, "I'm fine," ask a couple more questions. Or, before you honk at someone, or before you're rude in the grocery store, or before you cut or do whatever you're going to do something else that's kind. And it's hard to remember to do that. It's definitely a practice, unless you're, a little angel here on earth. Sometimes we don't do that. We do lose it with other humans. It's hard.
It is. And I was at keynote in Singapore, and one of the things they did is they had a bunch of people put on signs of what they're going through in their lives. It was so powerful. And they had 30 people just walk across the stage with their issue. And they walked, and they were perfectly silent. They just showed us the issue and they kept walking. And it was a reminder to all of us watching, oh yes, you never know.
Who taught me this, actually? It wasn't something I was put on the planet. No, I am definitely an empath, and I'm in the middle of 11 kids, so I'm definitely more sensitive to things. But she really taught me this. I remember I was doing a keynote, I don't know how many years ago now. I think it was 2 years ago now. I did a keynote for the whole Little East Conference, which is student athletes ages, maybe like 18 to 23 or so. And there are 500 kids in the room, and I'm standing up at the top, and I standing up at the front of the room, and I said, "So I put a piece of paper for each of you on the desk in front of you. Tell us 1 to 2 or 3 things that's actually going on in your lives other than school and other than sports." And they passed them all forward, and I started reading some of them. I actually started bawling reading them. My mom has cancer. But I could go, I don't know. I can't even remember all of them, but it was like that. There were multiple people with parents who had cancer. There were multiple people who had parents who had just died. there were sibling things, there were speeding tickets, there were just on and on and on and on and on things going on. I don't feel good. I have injuries, the sports injuries. I just broke my ankle. This is my senior year, and now all my sports dreams are vanished. So many things, and we compiled a list of those things. So we have 500 things that were going on in that room, and even more, probably 1,000 things going on in that room. Other than listening to me talk about my book, other than the sports that were going on, and other than grades. And wasn't that mind blowing, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, and it's global. It's global. It's not just here. It's everywhere. And there's similar issues.
And so that's the Percolate Peace website, I think, in a nutshell. Like if you've got something going on and you want others to know about it or us to know about it or whatever, that's percolatepeace.com, where you can go in and share a moment of peace, or a wish or a prayer or something going on in your life or something that you did.
We'll share that for sure. My final question for each of you is two-pronged. Do you have hope in the future of humanity, and what's your wish for humanity going forward? We'll start with you, Katie.
I do have hope. I always have hope. I was Pollyanna when I was born. And the reason I have hope, number one, is because I studied history. And when I studied history, I studied people. And people are going to change things for the better. And history repeats itself. It's cyclical. And we're going through kind of a bummer right now. But there have been bummers before. There have been horrible things before that we have come through. Look at the civil rights movement. I mean, we made it through that, and we did it once, we can do it again. And so I believe in and have hope for that. I have hope, and I believe that we will get better at inclusivity, diversity, connection, compassion, acceptance, and love. Unconditional love. That is my hope for the world, for the future. And I do believe we are going to get better and better and better.
Thank you. That was so beautifully put. We captured that. Thank you, Dr. Katie. What about you, Elizabeth?
I'm always one to be hopeful as well. And I tend to think we're way more connected on a person-to-person level than we are disconnected. I think we're more connected than ever, actually. Disconnected in some ways, but more connected in, we can reach each other. We can go on Facebook. We can go on Twitter. We can go on Instagram. We can reach out to people in other countries where we couldn't before. And I have so many friends in different countries now. So does Katie, that maybe I wouldn't have had before without the invention of social media and stuff. So I like these questions. They're on page 267 of the book. I think forgetting connection is what unravels peace. We wrote that. And the questions that many of us are asking in private that I think need to be said out loud are this: why are we tolerating this? Katie and I, this isn't just me, this is me and Katie with what we wrote in the book. Why are outdated systems still shaping our futures? Why do we let cruelty, greed, and division be the way things are? Why are we still made to believe that peace means silence? We don't always take it or let them. Many of us are rising. We are speaking, leading, building, healing, and yet often dismissed, labeled dramatic, or told now is not the time. So we wrote, let us be clear. Peace is not a weakness. It's not passive. It's not silence. It's power, and it's our participation. Peace is a choice to show up even when it would be easier to check out. And it's not about politics or perfection, but it's about humanity. And so we always say pause for humanity. And so a little bit down the page, we said, so let's stop asking so what now? Let's stop asking why we keep allowing this and start asking what can we do right now to change it? Because we can, and because it's person by person. And then it goes to Katie's show up with love. So I love the end. I didn't mean to give away the end of the book, but pause for humanity. Pause, breathe, choose. And when you choose, not only choose peace, but choose us all, for crying out loud.
Yeah. And choose love over fear. So thank you both. This has been wonderful. I've learned so much. I just feel your peace. You emanate a lot of peace, love, gratitude, authenticity. So thank you for writing this beautiful book. And I'm looking forward to getting this episode out into the world to help many people who are struggling and need to hear these things. So thank you both.
Thank you. I can't wait to have you on our show too. Your book is amazing. So we're very grateful that we got to meet you through writing the Peace Guidebook. I mean, how cool is that? Somebody we might not have ever met. So we're both very grateful for you.
Thank you, Laura.
Me too. Stay well, you both. Thank you for tuning in to Where Work Meets Life. If you found this content valuable, please rate, review, and share with others who may benefit. If you're struggling in your work life and need support, I offer coaching sessions. You can book a complimentary consult on my website. I'm also a passionate keynote speaker and would love to discuss your professional speaking needs. Visit my website, drlaura.live, to sign up for my monthly e-newsletter filled with tips and resources to help you stay well.